The pen's tip hovered over the divorce agreement. My hand was shaking. Across from me, my wife of 5 years, Sophia, sat with makeup immaculate and eyes as cold as ice. Ethan, sign it. Don't waste everyone's time. I looked up, wanted to make one last plea. Sophia, I told you, I've fallen in love with someone else. She interrupted me impatiently, glanced at the watch on her wrist. He's still waiting for me. My heart felt as if it were being crushed by a hand. I closed my eyes, gathered all my strength, and scratched out my name. The moment the ink settled, the world spun. I jolted awake and found myself lying on my bedroom bed. The sunlight was blinding. The alarm clock on the bedside table read exactly 7 in the morning. Sophia walked out of the bathroom in a bathrobe, her face wearing that familiar indifference. She tossed the document onto the bedside table, her voice utterly flat. Ethan, let's get a divorce. My head buzzed, as if someone had struck me hard with a cudgel. Divorce agreement. The exact same document, in the exact same place, with the exact same words. I instinctively reached into my pocket. It was empty, and the copy I had just signed was gone. Sophia, didn't you just... I spoke, my voice faltering. Sophia frowned, and the way she looked at me, as if I were insane, snapped me back to reality. Are you still half asleep? I just woke up. Hurry and sign it. We're going to the Civil Affairs Bureau at 9. I've already made an appointment. After she finished speaking, she turned and went to the wardrobe to change clothes, leaving behind a resolute back. I sat on the bed as cold sweat instantly soaked my back. This is not a dream. The despair and heartbreak just now at the door of the Civil Affairs Bureau felt as real as if engraved in my bones. Could it be an illusion? I forced myself to calm down and, following the routine in my memory, washed up and changed clothes. Sophia was already sitting at the dining table, 2 sandwiches and milk in front of her, a habit our household had kept for 5 years, even on the day of the divorce. Hurry up and eat, don't be late, she urged, her tone devoid of any lingering affection. I sat opposite her, staring at that face, familiar yet strange, and felt a swirl of emotions. 5 years of relationship. Can you just stop loving someone like that? Not even a trace of reluctance. Sophia, I said with difficulty, just because of Dylan. Sophia paused mid-sip of her milk, then sneered. So you did find out. Yes, I love him. He understands me more than you do. He's better than you. He can give me the future I want. Ethan, admit it. We haven't been from the same world for a long time. My heart clenched painfully again. So was true. The man I had always treated as a business partner, even invited home for dinner a few times, had long ago been digging under my feet. I lost my appetite, drove in silence, and dropped her off at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau. The procedure was exactly the same as in my memory. We took a number, waited, then walked into that small room. The staff member handed over a pen with an expressionless face. Have you made up your mind? Once you sign, you can't take it back. I looked at Sophia. She signed her name without hesitation, then pushed the agreement toward me. That look urged me on, as if trying to get rid of a huge nuisance. My heart was utterly dead. Perhaps this was the best release. I picked up the pen again, trembling, and wrote the 2 words, Ethan. The final stroke fell. The world spun again. I jolted awake and found myself once more lying in my bedroom bed. Sunlight, the alarm clock, 7 o'clock sharp. Sophia walked out of the bathroom and threw a divorce agreement onto the bedside table. Ethan, let's get a divorce. This time, I sprang up straight out of bed. No, I won't divorce you. I rushed over, snatched the copy of the agreement, and tore it to shreds. The paper scraps fluttered down like snowflakes. Sophia was stunned by my action. She froze for a few seconds. Then her face went deathly pale. Ethan, what on earth are you doing? I'm the one who's crazy? Sophia, who exactly is going mad here? I glared at her with bloodshot eyes. Tell me, what is the date today? Have we already divorced once? She looked at me with a mixture of contempt and pity. You're not trying to win him back. You're trying to extort money, aren't you? Pretending to be crazy and stupid like this is really pathetic. She ignored me, turned, and took another identical agreement out of the drawer. I prepared for this a long time ago. Whether you sign or not, you will sign. My heart sank to the bottom of the valley. So that was it. She had prepared so thoroughly. The second time, I refused to sign. I locked her in the house and tried to talk to her. I started from the day we first met, spoke about the hardships of starting our business, spoke about the vows we once made. I spoke until my mouth was dry, pouring out my heart in tears. She just looked at me coldly, like she was looking at a dancing clown. Are you finished? She raised her wrist and glanced at the time. Ethan, stop acting. You make me sick. What I said is all true. Really? Really, it's that you've been content with the status quo these past few years, with no drive to improve? Really that you're satisfied with that half-dead little studio, while Dylan is already preparing to go public? Really that every time I talk to you about the future, you only ever say this is fine as it is? Her words struck at my heart. I am so disappointed in you. We are long past being on the same path. That day we had a huge fight. She smashed our favorite pair of couple mugs, and I knocked over the potted plant we had planted together. The house was a mess, just like our marriage. In the end, I still couldn't stop her. She called the police and accused me of unlawful detention. Under the police's mediation, I followed her to the Civil Affairs Bureau in a mess. When I was forced to sign my name, that damn dizzy feeling struck again. The third time I woke up, I lay on the bed numb. Ethan, let's get a divorce. A familiar voice sounded in my ear. I looked at the ceiling and felt a bone-deep fear for the first time. I was trapped on this day, October 26th, 2023, the darkest day of my life, the day I got divorced. After confirming I was caught in a time loop, I began dozens of attempts to win her back. The fourth time, I bought her favorite lilies, made the breakfast she loved most, and tried to woo her like we were newly in love. She took the flowers and casually threw them into the trash. Don't waste your effort. The fifth time, I knelt and begged her. I clung to her legs, crying like a child, pleading for one more chance. She kicked me away with her foot, her eyes full of disgust. Ethan, can you act like a man? The sixth time, I found Dylan. I waited for him downstairs at his company, wanted to talk to him. Instead, I saw him with his arm around Sophia's waist, walking out intimately. Sophia was smiling so happily, a smile I hadn't seen on her face in a long time. At that moment, I rushed forward and punched Dylan in the face. We wrestled together and were finally pulled apart by security. Sophia stood to one side, nervously checking Dylan's injuries, and when she looked back at me, her gaze was like that of an implacable enemy. Ethan, you are completely unreasonable. That day, things between us got even more strained. When we divorced, she didn't even bother to look at me once. The 10th time, I changed my strategy. I stopped begging and agreed to the divorce, but asked her to spend this last day with me. I want to relive the beautiful times we once had. I took her to the cinema where we had our first date, the park where we held hands for the first time, the riverside where we had our first kiss. She was expressionless the whole time, like a puppet forced to perform. Ethan, is this interesting? That was all a long time ago. But those are our memories. Memories won't fill your stomach. You have to look forward. She pointed at a skyscraper in the distance. Dylan's company is right there on the top floor. And you're still clinging to that rundown office that can barely even pay the rent. My heart was pierced again. Yes, my design studio has been struggling these past few years, barely keeping afloat. But Dylan's tech company has become a rising star in the industry. The huge gap wiped out all the admiration and affection she once had for me. That night, I still signed. The loop continued. On the 20th time, I began to grow angry and irritable. If it can't be salvaged, then we'll hurt each other. She brought up divorce. I sneered. She cursed at me, and I cursed back even more harshly. I exposed her and Dylan's sordid deeds, tearing apart her pretended purity and decency. She trembled with anger and slapped me. I didn't hold back either. Pointing at her nose, I said, Sophia, stop pretending. You're just someone who shuns the poor and loves the rich. When I was doing well, why didn't you say we weren't on the same path? Now that I'm down, you're so eager to find a better match. We fought so violently it felt like the world turned upside down, saying every hurtful thing we could. On the way to the Civil Affairs Bureau, we were silent the whole way. After signing, I even felt a slight sense of relief. But the next morning at 7, everything was as usual. The 30th time, I was utterly despairing. If nothing I did could change the outcome, then what was the point of struggling? That day, I didn't say a single word to Sophia. She threw the divorce agreement at me, and I watched expressionlessly. She urged me, and I didn't say a word. I spent the entire day shut in my study, reviewing our 5-year marriage. From sweetness to indifference, then to arguments and coldness. I admit it, I have problems. I was too immersed in my own world and neglected her feelings. My ambition isn't what it used to be, which made her feel uneasy and disappointed. But does that justify her betraying me? I can't make sense of it. At 9 in the evening, the Civil Affairs Bureau was about to close. She finally, impatient, kicked open the study door. Ethan, what exactly do you want? Is dragging this out fun for you? I looked up calmly and said to her, let's go. She froze for a moment, probably not expecting me to be so decisive. That night, when signing, my hand was unusually steady. The 40th time, I began to go numb. Wake up punctually at 7 every morning. Hear the same words, see the same face. I'm like a robot with a preset program. Get up, wash, drive, get divorced. The whole process takes no more than 3 hours. The rest of the time belongs to me. I began trying things I had previously been afraid to do or hadn't had time for. Anyway, everything would reset the next day. I drove onto the highway, floored the accelerator, and experienced a life-or-death speed rush. When the car was stopped for speeding, I even smiled at the traffic cop. Anyway, the fine will disappear tomorrow. I walked into a luxury store, maxed out my credit card, and bought a set of designer clothes I would never normally wear. Anyway, the debt will be wiped clean tomorrow. I found a client who used to make things difficult for me, tore his nonsensical design draft to pieces in front of him, and gave him a tongue lashing. Watching his stunned, enraged expression, I felt an unprecedented exhilaration. Anyway, tomorrow he would forget everything completely. The 50th time, I tried to kill myself. I wanted to see whether death could end this damned loop. I had written a suicide note, even though I knew no one would ever read it. Then I drove the car at 200 kilometers per hour and rammed into the highway median. The violent impact, the tumbling vehicle, the sting of glass shards slicing my skin. In the final moment before consciousness slipped away, I thought, at last I can be free. However, I jerked my eyes open. The familiar bedroom, the familiar sunlight, the familiar 7 o'clock. On the bedside table, the divorce agreement lay quietly. Sophia's voice sounded on cue. Ethan, let's get a divorce. I can't die. That realization terrified and despaired me even more than the loop itself. I lay there like a walking corpse, motionless in bed. No matter how Sophia urged or how she insulted me, I didn't respond at all. She eventually lost patience and took a taxi to the Civil Affairs Bureau herself. As for me, I lay in bed all day. I stared at the ceiling from daylight to darkness. My mind went blank. I am trapped. Trapped in an eternal prison, forced to taste the sting of abandonment over and over again. Endless. From the 51st time to the 90th, I went through a long period of decline. I drank heavily, got into fights, and lingered in dens of vice. I used every method I could to numb myself. I saw what Jing City looked like at 4 in the morning, and I saw the myriad scenes of the midnight streets. I fought with hobos over territory and once took part in a gang fight with some street thugs. I became someone who wasn't myself. Every morning, I woke up amid a mess and a hangover pounding in my skull, then had to face Sophia's cold face. Sometimes I was even too lazy to get a divorce. The outcome is the same anyway. She went from initial anger to later contempt and finally to complete indifference. We were like living in two parallel worlds. She followed her divorce procedures step by step, while I drowned myself in a hedonistic frenzy at my own personal apocalypse. During these chaotic days, I instead saw Sophia and Dylan's situation more clearly. Every day at 12:30 p.m., Sophia would go to a Western restaurant called Jan to have lunch with Dylan. They would talk about the company, about the future, about art, about wine. Dylan would give her a bouquet of champagne roses, and she would smile very sweetly. Once I got drunk, stormed into the restaurant, and overturned table. Sophia looked at me with no anger, only a deep sense of powerlessness and exhaustion. As if to say, look, this is who you are. How could I possibly continue living with you? In that moment, I think I understood a little. She hadn't stopped loving me. She had fallen in love with a better life and with the person who could give it to her. And I was the one eliminated. The 91st time, I woke from a hangover and, looking at the man in the mirror, stubbly, hollow-eyed, reeking of alcohol, suddenly felt very strange. Is this Ethan? Is this the Ethan who was once full of vigor and once won an international design award? I vomited, not because of alcohol, but because of disgust at myself. I had been decadent for too long, and I had been avoiding things for too long. Since I can't die and I can't run away, why not try living differently? Anyway, I have all the time in the world. That day, I didn't drink myself into a stupor anymore. I walked into a 24-hour gym and bought a day pass. I ran like crazy, lifted weights, pouring all my energy and pain into sweat. The soreness in my muscles somehow made my mind unusually clear. The next day, I continued. Day 3, day 4. I began to plan out my days. Mornings, work out. Afternoons, I go to the library. I picked up again the professional books I had abandoned and began studying some entirely new fields, such as finance, programming, and psychology. After all, the knowledge wouldn't reset the next day. My muscle memory and brain memory remained. At night, I no longer went to bars. I found a music shop and used a day's wages to rent a piano. I've always wanted to learn the piano, but I always felt I didn't have the time. Now, what I lack least is time. The 95th time, I stood shirtless in front of the mirror, looking at my clearly defined 8-pack abs and smooth muscle lines, and smiled in satisfaction. The changes in my body brought about a transformation of my spirit. I no longer paid attention to anything about Sophia. What she said or did in the morning no longer mattered to me. If she wanted a divorce, I prepared my ID card and household registration book and left them by the entryway. She was going to see Dylan, and I would even politely remind her not to forget the car keys. In my world, she was no longer the only one. My life became more fulfilling than ever. And one day, I learned Chopin's Nocturne. Although my playing was clumsy and halting, when the first note flowed from my fingertips, I felt a long-missed sense of accomplishment. And one day, I finished reading a book titled 金融市场学. Although many parts were half understood, a whole new world opened its doors to me. And one day, I went to a boxing gym. I was beaten up by the coach until my face and nose were bruised, but I also learned the most basic straight punch and hook. Bodily pain is far easier to endure than the pain in my heart. Moreover, this kind of pain is meaningful. It made me stronger. The 98th time, I can play the third movement of Moonlight Sonata all the way through. I can read K-line charts and make basic analyses of several stocks. I can spar with the coach at the gym for 10 rounds without falling behind. I even learned how to race. At an abandoned racetrack in the outskirts, I turned the 5-year-old family car into something that felt like a race car. Drifting, power sliding, each sharp scrape of tire against asphalt felt like a farewell to my previously timid life. I even started studying cooking. When divorce was no longer the focus of my day, I discovered that a day could actually be this wonderful. Sophia seemed to notice the change in me. She no longer tossed the agreement down and left in the morning like before. Sometimes she would stand there and watch me for a few seconds. There were complex emotions in her eyes that I couldn't understand. Was it puzzlement? Was it scrutiny? But I no longer care. To me, she was just an NPC who posted the divorce task punctually at 7 every morning. It was over between us long ago. When I signed the 98th divorce agreement, I could even say to her, "I wish you happiness." She froze, the hand holding the pen hovering in midair. But I didn't look at her again. After signing, I turned and walked away. I know that tomorrow, everything will start over again. But I am no longer the person I was yesterday. The 99th loop. At 7 in the morning, I open my eyes, my expression calm and untroubled. As usual, Sophia placed the divorce agreement on the bedside. Ethan, got it. I cut her off, got out of bed, and began my morning stretching routine. Smooth movements, taut muscles filled my body with a sense of strength. Sophia stood in place, not leaving like she usually did. I could feel her gaze lingering on me the whole time. I ignored her, finished my stretches, and went into the bathroom for a shower. When I came out, she was still standing there. She seemed like she wanted to say something. Something you need? I wiped my hair, my tone even. You seem to have changed. I smiled, non-committal. I've signed the agreement and left it on the table. The car keys are there too. Drive yourself. I have something to do today, so I won't see you off. I said this as I changed into a clean set of casual clothes. She looked at me, and for the first time a clear look of astonishment appeared in her eyes. In the dozens of loops, no matter how I caused a scene, how despondent I was, or how I ignored her, I had never missed the divorce. Today is the first time. Where are you going? She asked instinctively. A secret. I waved to her, turned around, and walked out the door. That day, I didn't go to the gym, the library, or the music shop. I spent the whole morning running all over the major vegetable markets and grain and oil stores in Jing City. I bought the best flour, the freshest eggs, and the clearest cooking oil. In the afternoon, in a small rented kitchen, I repeatedly mixed the dough, let it rest, kneaded it, and stretched it. The dough in my hands went from stiff to soft, and from soft to elastic. I watched tutorials I had downloaded online and tried again and again. Fail, start over. Fail, try again. When the first golden, crispy classic American fry rolled and formed in the oil pan, I let out a long breath. That's right. What I had to learn today was how to make classic American fries. The 100th loop. It was still dark when I got up. I left the house quietly without waking Sophia. I drove a rented van, loaded with all the materials I had prepared yesterday, and arrived at the street corner opposite the Civil Affairs Bureau. I set up my stall, arranged the table and chairs, and put the frying oil on the stove. When the sky was just beginning to lighten, my Ethan's little stall officially opened. I put on a white chef's coat and a tall chef's hat, looking surprisingly professional. Hot oil sizzled in the pan as I lowered the stretched noodles in. With an SSH, they quickly puffed up from white to golden. A rich aroma of wheat mixed with the scent of oil instantly filled the whole street corner. The first customer was a girl who got up early to go to work. Boss, how much for a fried dough stick? $3 for one, $5 for two. Miss, you're so pretty. I'll throw in a cup of soy milk. I said with a smile. The girl was amused by me and readily paid. Boss, these fried strips smell amazing. They must be delicious. After the first, there was a second, then a third. As the morning rush hour arrived, a long line had formed in front of my little stall. Boss, give me $10 worth. I want 2 fried dough sticks and a cup of sweet soy milk. These fried dough sticks are cooked perfectly, crispy on the outside and tender inside, not greasy at all. I was busy as could be. Knead the dough, drop it into the oil, flip and fry, scoop it out, pack it up, a series of movements flowing like water. The sun rose higher and higher, warming my body. Listening to customers' praise, smelling the fried strips aroma, watching the numbers on the payment QR code climb, I felt a solidity and joy I'd never known before. This kind of happiness was purer and more immediate than signing a multi-million contract or winning a design award. This is the sense of life I made with my own 2 hands bit by bit. At 9 o'clock sharp, the Civil Affairs Bureau opened. I glanced up. Sophia's car stopped at the entrance right on time. She was wearing a neat beige trench coat, wearing delicate makeup, standing at the door, instinctively looking out toward the street. She was waiting for me. I withdrew my gaze and went back to frying my fries. Hurry up, boss. Hurry, we're going to be late. All right. Sir, please wait a moment. Time passed second by second. 9:30. Sophia was still standing at the door, frequently checking her phone as if she was calling me. I had put my phone on silent and tossed it into the corner of the van. 10 o'clock. She seemed a bit impatient and began pacing back and forth at the door. Her gaze swept over the little stall across from me several times, but the crowd and rising cooking smoke kept her from noticing that the person wearing the tall chef's hat was me. 11 o'clock. The line of people gradually thinned. I could finally catch my breath and took a sip of the soy milk I had ground myself. Sophia across from me no longer had the elegance she showed when she first arrived. She was leaning against the wall, her face looking rather unpleasant. I guess Dylan was probably rushing her too. I can even imagine the contents of their phone call. Sophia, is it done? He didn't come. What's going on? That Ethan. What trick is he playing now? I don't know. I'll wait a little longer. Thinking this, I couldn't help but laugh. How the wheel of fortune turns. Once I waited humbly, begging. Now it's her turn. Noon. Most of the items on my stall have been sold. I wipe my hands and prepare to close up. Just then, a figure walked up to my stall. It's Sophia. She was probably getting impatient waiting and wanted to come buy something to fill her stomach. Boss also. Her voice cut off abruptly the moment she saw my face. I looked up and gave her a bright smile. Oh, isn't this Miss Sophia? What a coincidence. One order of fries? Sorry, we're sold out. Sophia's expression was utterly priceless. Shock, bewilderment, disbelief, and a touch of humiliation. She could hardly have imagined, even in her dreams, that the person she'd been waiting for all morning to divorce would be across from the Civil Affairs Bureau, energetically frying churros. Ethan. She tentatively called my name, her voice trembling. Yes, it's me. The real deal. I took off my hat and wiped the sweat from my forehead. What are you doing here? Obviously, I pointed to my stall. Making a living. Her lips moved as if she wanted to say something, but in the end she said nothing. There were still a few scattered customers around waiting for me to pack their orders. They watched us with curiosity. Ethan, Sophia's face flushed bright red. She lowered her voice, and there was a tone of command in it. Stop messing around. Come with me. Get the paperwork done. I leisurely finished packing the last bag and handed it to the customer. Thanks for your patronage. Please come again early tomorrow. After seeing the guest off, I turned my head and looked at Sophia. Divorce? Why wouldn't I divorce? I was packing up my things as I spoke, unhurriedly. Wait until I close up. Sophia was completely stunned. She may have imagined countless actions I might take today. Clinging, crying, throwing tantrums, even threatening to die. But she could never have expected that I would be so calm, even so perfunctory. Divorce, which to her seemed like the biggest thing in the world, was, to me, relegated behind a minor task of closing up shop. This enormous psychological gap left her momentarily at a loss. What do you mean? Literally. I washed each tool I had used and put them back in the van. I have to pack everything up properly, otherwise I won't be able to set up tomorrow. Business was pretty good today. I cleared over $800. I'll try to break 1,000 tomorrow. I spoke casually, as if discussing today's weather. Sophia looked at me, her expression growing increasingly unfamiliar. The man in front of her wore an oil-spattered chef's uniform, radiated the smell of cooking, and bore the satisfied, weary look of someone who had been busy. He was a far cry from the Ethan she remembered, the one in shirt and trousers, sitting at a computer drawing, full of scholarly air. In her memory, Ethan would argue with her for ages over a design detail, sigh over the studio's slipping performance, and tread carefully when she was displeased. He was sensitive, stubborn, and at times even a bit cowardly. But he was absolutely not this energetic go-getter, this carefree, indifferent man who seemed utterly unconcerned about the divorce. Ethan, what exactly are you trying to do? There was a faint, barely noticeable panic in her voice. Do you think using this kind of method will make me change my mind? I'm telling you it's impossible. The more you act like this, the more childish I think you are. I stopped what I was doing, turned to look at her, and smiled. Sophia, are you misunderstanding something? I never intended to make you change your mind. From a 99th time on, I stopped wanting to. The 99th time? What do you mean? Sophia frowned tightly. She obviously hadn't understood what I meant. I didn't explain. If I said such an absurd thing out loud, I'd only be treated like a madman. I kept packing up my stall and ignored her. She stood where she was, watching my busy back with a complicated look in her eyes. The sunlight stretched her shadow long. She stood there alone, looking somewhat lonely. Most of the people at the Civil Affairs Bureau's entrance had already left. She had waited all morning for the divorce and ended up as a joke. And the instigator was leisurely here, packing up a fried dough stick stall. Finally, she couldn't hold back. She came over, intending to help me clean up. I sidestepped to avoid her outstretched hand. Don't, Miss Sophia. That outfit of yours is pretty expensive. Don't get stained with oil. My tone was polite, but full of detachment. Her hand froze in midair, her face growing a little pale. Ethan, can we talk? Talk about what? About your future with Dylan, or about what price I should set for my fry stall tomorrow? I retorted without even looking up. Her breath faltered. Us. I stopped, looked her in the eyes, and said word by word, we were already finished the moment we signed that divorce agreement. Countless times. Sophia was stunned by the coldness and resolve in my eyes. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I didn't give her a chance to speak again. I finished packing the last of my things and locked the van's trunk. Let's go, I said. Weren't you the one who wanted a divorce? It's settled now. She looked as if she'd just woken from a dream, staring blankly as she followed behind me. We walked into the Civil Affairs office, one after the other. The hall was empty except for a few staff chatting. We took a number, and it turned out to be 1314. I looked at that number, found it unbearably ironic, and couldn't help laughing out loud. Sophia's expression grew even uglier. I walked into that familiar little room and faced that familiar staff member. Everything felt like a movie that had just been press play on. Have you two decided? This time, before Sophia could speak, I picked up the pen first. I didn't hesitate at all. I signed my name in a flourish. Then I pushed the agreement toward her. Your turn. My movement was even crisper and more decisive than the 99 times she had rehearsed. Sophia looked at the two neat signatures on the agreement, and the hand holding the pen began to tremble slightly. She raised her head and stared at me in disbelief. You do want a divorce that much? I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, watching her with the look of someone watching a play. What then? Miss Sophia, you were the one who brought up the divorce. You were the one who kept telling me we weren't on the same path. And now, at the last minute, you're backtracking? No, please. I cut her off. Mr. Dillon is still waiting for you. Don't keep him hanging. You see, I've already thought this through for both of you. Once you're divorced, you can openly be with him. He'll go public soon, and you'll be the glamorous CEO's wife. As for me, I'll have my fried snack stall. Maybe someday, I'll even open a chain and be a small business owner. We all have bright futures. I said it with a grin. Each word felt like a needle, piercing her heart. Her face shifted from pale to ashen, then from ashen to flushed. Her eyes, too, slowly reddened. Ethan, do you really have to do this? Her voice trembled, tinged with sobs. Do what? I pretended not to understand. Aren't I doing you a favor? You're not. She sprang to her feet, her chest heaving violently. You're taking revenge on me. You're humiliating me in this way. Humiliate? The smile on my face slowly faded, and my gaze turned cold. Sophia, who exactly is humiliating whom? When I begged you desperately, you thought I was acting. When I reminisced about the past with you, you thought I was wasting time. When I fought with Dylan for you, you thought I was unreasonable. In your eyes, everything I do is wrong. My pain, my struggle, my despair, to you, they're worth nothing. Now, as you wished, I've let go. You think I'm humiliating you. I stood up and took a step after step toward her, my gaze like a blade. Sophia, aren't you being too full of yourself? Do you think the world still has to revolve around you? I tell you, even if I don't blow up the bar, I can still play the piano, race cars, and fight. I admit on. Leaving you, I can still live very well. Maybe even better. And you're nothing more than one wrong choice I've made 99 times. Today is the 100th time. I'm going to choose correctly. My words hit her like a heavy hammer, smashing hard against her heart. Her body swayed, barely able to stay standing. Tears finally burst through the dam. The staff, probably having never seen such a scene, seemed at a loss for what to do. You too, are you still divorcing? Get out, I said firmly, without a hint of hesitation. Then I looked at Sophia, my voice as cold as ice. Sign the papers, Sophia cried. This was the first time I had seen her cry during this long day. Not the teary, delicate kind of grievance, but a true breakdown-style sobbing. She looked at me, her eyes full of remorse, pain, and pleading. If I had seen her like this in any of the first 99 times, I might have softened. But now, my heart has already been tempered into iron by the repeated loops. I have seen her in different face 99 times. That expression is deeply engraved in my mind. The tears in front of me are, for me, far too late. It's way too cheap. In the end, urged by the staff and under my stare, she signed her name through tears. When the 2 red books were handed to us, I let out a long, long sigh. Like a prisoner sentenced to life imprisonment, finally granted a pardon. Relieved, I took my book, turned and walked away with not a shred of reluctance. Ethan, Sophia called out to me from behind. I stopped walking and didn't turn around. Can we still be friends? Her voice was so meek it struck me as almost laughable. I was silent for a moment, then said, Miss Sophia, my fried snack stall still needs someone to wash dishes. Monthly salary $3,000. Meals provided but not lodging. If you're interested, you can give it a try. After saying that, I walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau without looking back. Behind me was the sound of her uncontrollable sobbing. The sunlight was beautiful, so bright it was almost dazzling. I narrowed my eyes and looked at the deep blue sky. Today should be the clearest day in this long stretch of days. I drove my little truck, found a spot, and had a good sleep. I'm just too tired. I don't know if when I wake up tomorrow it will be another new day. But it didn't matter anymore. I no longer cared. The next day, I woke up to the shrill ringing of my phone. Dazed, I reached for it and glanced at the screen. It's an unfamiliar number. My heart skipped a beat. Not Sophia, nor any of those familiar people who would call me today. I sat up abruptly and looked around. I was still in my little van, but the scene outside the window had changed. Not the street in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau anymore. Last night before bed, I clearly parked the car at the Riverside Park. With trembling hands, I swiped open my phone screen. Date, October 27th, 2023. October 27th. I did it. The loop is over. A vast joy and sense of relief washed over me like a tide. I couldn't help but cheer in the cramped cockpit. Freedom. I'm finally free. The phone kept ringing insistently. I calmed myself and answered the call. Hello, is this Mr. Ethan? I bought fries from you yesterday. I'm a purchasing manager for a Western-style breakfast chain. I think your fries are excellent and would like to discuss a partnership. Are you interested? Happiness arrived so suddenly. I was stunned for a few seconds, then burst out laughing. Yes, of course I'm interested. Life was opening a whole new door to me. The meeting with the purchasing manager went very smoothly. After he tried the fried strips I made on the spot, he couldn't stop praising them and immediately signed a 1-year supply contract. The order quantity is huge. With just me running one stall, it's definitely impossible to complete. I need a storefront and some help. On the day I finally broke out of the loop, my life hit the fast-forward button. With a portion of the settlement from the divorce, plus a bit of savings I had, I quickly leased a small storefront, registered a company, and hired 2 assistants. My Ethan's Anshin Jatel shop officially opened. Thanks to steady orders from a couple of chain locations, plus the flavor improvements I kept making and my honest use of ingredients, business quickly took off. I was so busy every day that my feet never touched the ground, but my heart felt incredibly fulfilled. I never thought about Sophia again. She was like a deleted save file in my life. Though she had truly existed, she could no longer be read. Until one day, half a month later, she appeared at the door of my shop. That day, I had just seen off the last group of customers and was about to close. She stood in the doorway, quietly watching me. She had lost a lot of weight. Her face was pale. She wasn't wearing makeup, and she looked very haggard. The beige trench coat she was wearing also looked a bit empty. When she saw me, her eyes brightened for a moment, with a hint of timidity and hope. Ethan, I wiped my hands and looked at her calmly. Is there something I can help you with, Miss Sophia? My being called that made her body stiffen. Can I come in and sit for a bit? Sorry, we're closed. I pointed at the sign by the door. I just want to say a few words to you. She was almost begging. I hesitated for a moment, then let her in. I poured her a glass of water and sat down in the chair opposite her. The two people who were once closest now felt like two strangers who had just met, the atmosphere awkward and heavy. You. We both started to speak, then stopped at the same time. In the end, she was the one to break the silence. Are you doing okay? It's fine. I was concise. This shop, did you open it? Business seems pretty good. I'm fine. My coldness caused the rest of her words to get stuck in her throat. She lifted the cup, took a sip, as if trying to steady herself. Ethan. She raised her head, her eyes red again. I know, saying this now may be too late, but I still want to say it. Sorry. After that day, I thought a lot. It was my fault. I was blinded by vanity. I hurt you. Dylan and I also broke up. I raised an eyebrow, said nothing, waiting for her to continue. When he found out I divorced, he proposed to me. But at that moment, all I could think about was you. It was you standing at the Civil Affairs Bureau entrance, covered in the smell of oil and smoke, but smiling so happily. It was you saying, we both have bright futures, while your eyes were so cold. I just realized I didn't know you at all. Or rather, I never truly tried to understand you. I took your kindness for granted, got used to your tolerance, treated everything as given. I was wrong, Ethan. I really was. She said this, and tears fell again. Can we go back to the past? I'm willing to change. I'll do anything for you. Please, give me one more chance, okay? She reached out, trying to take my hand. I stepped back and pulled away. I watched her quietly, watching the woman I had once loved for 5 years and then hated for 99 days. Her confession was sincere. Her pain was real too, but this had nothing to do with me anymore. Sophia. I spoke, my voice so calm it showed not a ripple. Do you know? On the day you asked for a divorce, I was trapped. She froze, looking at me in confusion. I relived that day 100 times. The first time, my heart was torn to pieces. The second time, I tore up the agreement, wanted to lock you at home. The sixth time, I fought Dylan for you. The 10th time, I begged you to spend the last day with me. On the 20th time, we had an earth-shattering fight. On the 50th time, I drove into the median. I wanted to die, but I didn't. Every time I spoke, her complexion paled a little. By the end, she had no color left. Her lips were trembling. Later, I went numb. I fell into decadence. I indulged myself. After that, I came to my senses. I started working out, reading, learning piano, learning boxing, learning to race. It took me dozens of days to turn myself into another person. And during those 99 days, every morning at 7, you would promptly throw the divorce papers at me and, in the same cold tone, say the same words. You go to the Meat Western restaurant every day at 12:30 and chat and laugh with Dylan. You watch me in pain, watch me struggle, watch me fall. Your expression has never changed. Cold, contemptuous, impatient. I stood up and looked down at her. Sophia, it was you who, with your own hands over 99 days, killed the Ethan who loved you. Now, on what grounds do you ask me to bring him back? Opportunities? I gave you 99. It was you who didn't cherish a single one. My words, like a final judgment, utterly shattered her. She slumped into the chair, sobbing uncontrollably. I opened the shop door and pointed outside. Let's go. Don't come back again. My life has turned a new page. Please, don't bother me anymore. I don't know how Sophia left. All I know is that from that day on, she never appeared again. My life returned to normal. My fried dough stick shop got busier and busier. I opened branches, built a professional team, and even began exploring online sales. I used all the skills I learned during the loops. Financial knowledge taught me how to manage the company's finances. Psychology taught me to take the initiative when negotiating with people. And fitness and boxing gave me a strong body to face every challenge. I become the person I like. Busy but fulfilled, independent and free. 1 year later, I met Dylan again at an industry summit. His company ultimately still couldn't go public. The funding pipeline collapsed, and he's now seeking financing everywhere. His situation is dire. He saw me, froze for a long time, and only then recognized me. You are Ethan, Mr. Dylan, long time no see. I smiled and raised my glass to him. He looked at my well-tailored suit and the title on my business card. Founder of Ethan's Food Company, Limited, his expression complex. I really didn't expect this. He gave a wry smile. After 3 days apart, one views the other with new eyes. We chatted for a few sentences. He told me that after he and Sophia broke up, Sophia resigned. It seems like she sold the house and went to a very distant place. I don't know where she went. She probably wanted a change of environment to start over. I nodded and said nothing more. We ultimately went on to live our separate lives. The summit ended, and I stepped out of the hotel. As the city lights came on, Jing City's nightscape gleamed brilliantly. I drew a deep breath. The air smelled of freedom. Those 100 cycles were like a bizarre, hallucinatory dream. They were once a nightmare I couldn't escape, but in the end they brought about my rebirth. They taught me that what truly traps a person is not time or circumstance, but obsession. The moment I let go of my obsession, the world suddenly opened up. I started the car and merged into the endless river of traffic. Ahead, a broader life was waiting for me.